Well, I'd like to welcome everyone here today. Thank you for making the journey here. It's always nice to associate with like-minded souls and share our energy together. My name's Jake, and I'll be leading the service this morning. Today we're going to talk about the light that shines behind the darkness, which is appropriate for this time of year. And I found a quote by Rabindranath Tagore. And he said, "Faith is the bird that feels the light when the dawn is still dark." And I thought that was a really good quote to set the tone. Norm Paulson, who was the founder of Sunburst, as you can read in his autobiography, at a very young age, really wanted to know God. Did God exist? Can you see God? Can you wrap your arms around God and feel that energy enveloping you? And one day when he was young, I don't know, probably 6 or so, he was in the yard with his grandmother, called her Nana. And he said, "Nana, has anyone ever seen God?" And she thought for a second and said, "Well, they say that Moses saw God." And that lit a fire inside of Norm. Well, if Moses saw God, then I can see God. And Moses described God as a burning bush. And when he came down from after being up on that mountain in the presence of the Divine Spirit, it said that his face shined like the sun. He was so enveloped in that light. Jesus took Peter, James, and John up into the mountains to pray, which is what the Bible keeps saying, but we all understand that Jesus taught his disciples how to meditate. And while they were there, Jesus transfigured, and his face shined like the sun, and his clothes turned a bright white in front of these disciples. Paul was on his way to slay Christians and was blinded by this brilliant white light and knocked off his horse and changed forever. His consciousness shifted 180 degrees. So there have been all these examples of the people experiencing the light, seeing the light. Well, what is this light, and where did it come from, and how can we see it and feel it? So I'd like to do a little visualization exercise, and I need everyone to just close their eyes and take maybe 3 or 4 deep, calming breaths where you inhale through the nostrils and release the exhale slowly, and just let your mind be at peace. And try to slow your thoughts and use your intuition and your visualization to hear this process of the beginning of the light. Norm, who had a cosmic conscious experience, experienced this light many times. And we have classes here at Sunburst that teach the origin of the light and the beginning of creation, which Norm conveyed to us. before there were images, before there was sound, before anything existed, Divine Spirit was an endless sea of bliss and ecstasy. There was no beginning, no end, no up, no down. It just was ecstasy and bliss. At a certain point, Divine Spirit desired to see images. Immediately upon that desire, the smallest of all places was created within this endless sea. And Divine Spirit felt the largest of all places. Divine Spirit sent out from the smallest of all places, clockwise and counterclockwise vortex that went in opposite directions out towards the largest of all places. As they approached from opposite directions, one spinning clockwise, one spinning counterclockwise, they were attracted to one another and merged. Because they were spinning in opposite directions, they were able to exist in the same space, spinning together, masculine and feminine energies were born. And this energy was attracted back to the smallest of all places. And so as it traveled, sound existed, friction, heat, as it traveled back to the smallest of all places. Once it merged with the smallest of all places, the Big Bang happened. A bursting of energy and images from the divine burst forth through the smallest of all places, out to the largest of all places. And creation began. And began to exist as a bubble, floating in the infinite sea of Divine Spirit. And images were brought forth, and solar systems were formed. And like layers of an onion, dimensions of consciousness were formed, radiating outward from the smallest of all places. This brilliant light that exists in the smallest of all places is what we call the great central sun. It's the origin of life and the sustainer of life, as Divine Spirit continues every microsecond of time in a pulsing sound of Om, energize and create images throughout these dimensions of consciousness, throughout this bubble of creation. This great central sun can travel interdimensionally and can fill this room. It can be as small as sitting on the crowns of our heads. I'm in awe when I meditate on this process and this existence of this light that's behind the darkness. And in those examples that I said earlier with Jesus and Moses and Paul, this brilliant light, this great central sun, can enter into us at any time when we least expect it and change our consciousness and our lives forever. The Hopis used to say, when this happens, you have the scent of the skunk. You can't get rid of it. It's there. You experienced it. And you'll never forget it. And hopefully you'll pursue it more and more in your lives. We're so thankful that over the years in this dimension, we've had teachers who have revealed the secrets of Divine Spirit, have lived an example of a natural man or a natural woman filled with the divine. We're so lucky that we've had these examples and these souls that reincarnated here and fulfilled a great purpose in the continued evolution of mankind here. One of the tools that they introduced is a tool of meditation. And I liken meditation to like a Swiss Army knife. If you just want a knife that's going to cut things, the Swiss Army knife can do that. If you want to saw a tree down, it can do that too. It is a multi-purpose tool, and depending on your skill and what you need it to do, it's there for you. So meditation can be, for someone, very basic. It's basically just a breath control and relaxing the mind. A lot of people just practice that. Or in athletics, in athletes, meditation sometimes is taught. And they calm the mind, and they begin a visualization process where they watch themselves go through their event and prepare themselves to compete. And it has been shown to be extremely helpful in their performances. But the greater purpose of meditation is for all of us that are pursuing the experience of Divine Spirit to have this tool and use it in a way that opens up the doors of our consciousness and brings thoughts and images to us that we never imagined before. And we feel an energy that we never felt before. We feel it in our cells. We feel it in the crowns of our heads. We feel it as it descends in our spines, our interdimensional tunnel. And Norm's continued search for someone to help him find God. He had lots of visions of a man with large brown eyes and long hair. And he couldn't figure out who it was. And he went with a friend to visit someone in LA, and on the coffee table was Autobiography of a Yogi with a picture of Yogananda on it. And Norm looked at it and just couldn't believe it, because that was the face that he had been seeing. He asked the person whose house it was, "Who is this, and where can I find them?" And turns out Yogananda was in Los Angeles, right, 100 miles from where Norm lived at the time. So Norm went to see Yogananda lead a service at the Hollywood Church that next Sunday. And he sat there and he felt like Yogananda was looking at him the whole time. And he said tears just flowed from Norm's eyes as he gazed upon this face that he had seen for so many years. After the service, he went up and he tried to talk to Yogananda, who was out on a patio. And the person said, "No, sorry, you have to make an appointment." And Norm said, "I've got to see him. I got to talk to him." So Yogananda allowed Norm to come out on the patio to talk to him. And he said, "I've been waiting for you. When can you come?" Norm said, "I'll be there as soon as I pack a bag." So a few days later, he made the journey up to Mount Washington. And he didn't really see Norm for a couple of weeks, but he was taught the basic meditation technique of Hong Sau, which we teach here. So he began practicing meditation during those 2 weeks. And one night, he got a message that Yogananda wanted to see him up in his apartment. So Norm went up there, and Yogananda was sitting in a chair. And Yogananda said, "Big boy," which is what he always called Norm, because Norm was about 6'4" and weighed about, 220 or so. And he said, "Big boy, did you learn about the spiritual eye?" Meaning, did you learn about Hong Sau? And Norm said, "Yes, I've been practicing it." So he said, "Well, sit down there and repeat silently, 'Father, Father, reveal thyself to me.'" And Yogananda turned off the light. At first, Norm had trouble focusing on the one point. But then he began repeating the words, "Father, Father, reveal thyself to me." And in his inner vision, a light began to form. He likened it to being in a dark theater where there's a curtain across the stage and the stage lights slowly start coming up and shining on the curtain. He said chunks of gold light, like fire, began to appear in his inner vision, forming a gold ring. As he focused on the center of the ring, it was like being in a tunnel where this light, far off in the distance, this white light began to appear. The light started drawing Norm towards it through the tunnel. And as he entered the tunnel of gold and started traveling towards the light, Yogananda turned on the light And he said, you must enter that light, Norm, and penetrate the star. Then you will be with the eternal divine spirit forever. And Norm kept up that practice, and he learned Kriya Yoga meditation technique. And at a very young age, had that divine cosmic conscious experience where his breath slowed and stopped while he was meditating. His heart slowed and stopped. And his consciousness exited his physical body. And he made that journey into the consciousness of divine spirit. And actually grew as large. His consciousness just kept expanding and expanding. And soon he saw the bubble of creation existing. And his consciousness was surrounding it. And then he felt a presence around him, the presence of divine. And a voice said, now that you have seen my son, you must go back. And so Norm made that journey back down through all the dimensions and entered the crown of his physical body again. And when he was able to come out of that state of ecstasy and bliss, 7.5 hours had passed. I think most of us have experienced sitting in the audience of a theater that is going to have a play or a performance. And the curtains are drawn. And for me, every time I'm in that situation, I can feel the presence of people behind the curtain, setting up the stage for their performance. And maybe there's lights on back there that one begins to see shining under the curtain. Maybe a stage hand walks by and the curtains part for a second and the light shines through. When we meditate, it's very important that we keep our focus in the spiritual center of these physical bodies. And the spiritual center is down from the crown, in from the temples, and in from the bridge of the nose. It's the all-seeing eye. When Jesus said, make thy eye single, and thy whole body will be filled with light, he was talking about that place where we sit in meditation and we calmly gaze with one pointed focus out in front of the bridge of our nose, maybe 8 inches or so our eyes don't cross. And this is where we witness the darkness at first. And as we meditate and we keep our focus, we can begin to feel a presence behind that darkness. And as we open up our hearts, and pray to the divine. We could be blessed by seeing like a fog, like a purplish violet fog start to form. And as we continue to focus, we begin to see a golden ring and a tunnel which has a white pinprick of light at the very end. People that have had near-death experiences describe this. Describe entering the tunnel and witnessing this brilliant light that just projected love and peace. And their lives were changed forever. Divine Spirit has given these bodies all the tools we need to achieve this experience without having to have a near-death experience. And we are so blessed to have the tool of meditation to enable us to make that journey through the tunnel. And to pierce that light and feel Divine Spirit all around us, within us. And know in an instant who we are, why we're here, and where we're going when we exit this body. So let us pray together and set our intention for our quiet time together. Repeat after me. I am that I am, Mother, Father, Divine. We, your children, gather together today and celebrate you in our lives. And we give thanks to you for this wonderful life, that we are able to experience all of your images, and understand that you are within us and all around us. We ask that you sit with us now as we open our hearts and minds to your presence. And may the veil of darkness in our inner vision be lifted, that we might gaze upon you. Our Father and Mother. Amen. Yogananada once said, "Just behind the darkness of closed eyes shines the light of God. When you behold that light in meditation, hold on to it with devotional zeal. Feel yourself inside it. That is where God dwells." One night, Norm was walking with Yogananda, and Yogananda said, "I want you to promise me that you'll never give up your search for the divine." And Norm said, "I won't ever give up." And over the course of his life, he never gave up, no matter what obstacles were thrown at him, what challenges confronted him. His life was really an inspiration for so many of us, and can be for everyone. Of a man who came from humble beginnings, was able to achieve that incredible experience of the divine, and go on to help so many soul travelers, help them on their journey home to the divine. So my prayer is for everyone here and viewing this video, that we all never give up in our search, no matter what challenges and obstacles that confront us. And we have the support of one another. Take advantage of that through phone or email or your presence here. Thank you all for being here today, and many blessings to you.
I set my sail on the sea of light, in hopes of finding the bright sun, in hopes of finding thee, in hopes of finding the bright sun upon the other shore. Star that shines, reveal thyself to me, O God, reveal thyself to me, reveal thyself to me, my God, beyond all space and time.